Hello, class. Today we're going to discuss roles in SQL and why they're really awesome and how to implement them in SQL. A role is a named group of privileges that can be granted to users. This mechanism simplifies granting a common set of privileges. So, for example, here, if we look at the code on the bottom, we have create role TA. This creates a role that's called TA. We'll describe more in detail what this means as the video goes on. Um, and we grant whoever has this role TA the permission to create a table or create a view in the second line of the code. The third line of the code just says Tom and Jerry, who are two students, are granted TA privileges. So without roles, I want to just discuss a scenario where we don't have roles and why roles, and it'll illustrate how helpful roles can actually be. So suppose we have a company database and keeps track of all the employees and what type of access each member has, so what type of data. So we see here we have three employees, employee 1, employee 2, employee 3. Now employee 1 has access to the data set D1, D2, D3, and he is a regular employee. E2 has access to everything from D1 through D7, and he is a manager. Now E3 also has access to D1, D2, and D3. Notice how he has the same exact access privileges as E1 because they're both regular employees. Now, if you notice, in this scenario, we had to explicitly define what each employee has access to. And we notice that there's two, in our scenario, there's two different types of employees, regular employees and managers. Now, imagine if we had, if we hired a whole, 100 more employees for this. Imagine what we would have to do to specify each employee if we have to specify the data set for each employee explicitly every single time, because it seems like every regular employee has the same data set, every manager has the same data set. So why should we have to define it explicitly every time? This is where roles comes in. This is how we can avoid that problem. So if we use roles, we could define regular employee as D1, D2, D3 as the set, and we could define manager as the set D1 through D7. Now, if we did this, we could actually say that employee 1 is a regular employee, employee 2 is a manager, and employee 3 is a regular employee as well. And what this does is it maps these aliases to the data set that they have access to. Now we don't have to explicitly define what everybody has access to anymore. We could just say their role, and it makes things so much easier, so much quicker, and with much less of a hassle. So an example of implementation of roles would be that if we had a table students and we wanted to limit the access of John, who's a student, to select and insert and only attributes student ID, name, and age, and tuples with GPA value higher than 3.8. So a combination of view definition and privilege granting can be used to achieve this goal. So the implementation of this concept is as follows. So we create a view that's known as student 1. Now a view is just a subset of a database to be viewed or modified. So we're going to call this view student 1, and we're going to define this view as selecting the student ID, the name, and age from students where GPA is greater than 3.8. So that is what defines what the view is. And what we're going to do is we're going to select, and insert. We're going to grant those two privileges on student 1, which is the view, to John, which means that John is now granted the privileges to select or insert anything within the view known as student 1. So another topic regarding this, regarding rules, is the external schema, how they're created. So a typical external schema consists of a set of base tables and a set of views. It can almost be thought of like a view that results from combining columns from multiple tables. An external schema can be derived from the conceptual schema through a number of view definitions and privilege grantings. Now, it's possible that we want to grant somebody privileges and then we want to revoke those privileges from that person. Say we have a TA, John, and he does something stupid. I don't know, like he gives away, he's proctoring a test and when he hands out everybody the test, he also hands out the answer key, something really dumb, something he deserves to be fired for. So we want to be able to revoke his access to being a TA. So here is how we would do this in SQL. So the way this syntax works, and I'm going to explain everything line by line, is that we start with the word revoke. It's a keyword. That's why it's highlighted in blue. So we have revoke, and following the word revoke, we have an option. We can use the word all, which would just imply all privileges from that are involved, or we can move specific privileges, and we can have a list of them containing one or more elements if you just want to remove some of the privileges from this particular person that we want to fire. So on, so we have another, next line is on. So this is another keyword. And now we say on table name or view name, which specifies which set of data the access will be revoked from. Then we have the word from, which is another keyword. And we have a choice by either saying public, meaning we are going to revoke certain privileges on this certain data set from public, which could mean everybody who was ever granted the TA role will now lose their TA privileges, which is the case if you wanted to fire every TA, or if you want to specify a specific TA or a specific subset of the TAs that need to be fired. Like let's say John and his friend Ed were both TAs and they were both conspiring to do the same thing. We would fire both of them and keep the rest. We could just specify their two names as a list. However, the owner's privileges cannot be revoked, which makes sense. So if you want to see how this looks in action, if we want to revoke all privileges on students from user John, meaning John is the only TA we want to fire, then what we do is we say syntax is revoke all on students from John. Okay, and with that, that wraps up our discussion of roles. Thank you.